No Victocrats allowed. Why? Because we've got a country to save. Join me, Larry Elder, tonight starting at 7 on AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, and boy, Trump had a number of messages for a number of constituent groups over the weekend. One was to all of those PHAT solipsists who were commemorating the first anniversary of being self-involved dingbats with weird hats on their heads. He tweeted out in advance of their marches around the country.
Actually, while they were marching, he was tweeting out, and I guess people at the Women's March were like, oh, wait, what is he doing? Here's what he tweeted. Beautiful weather all over our great country, a perfect day for all women to march. Get out there now to celebrate this historic milestone and unprecedented economic success and wealth creation that has taken place over the last 12 months. Lowest female unemployment in 18 years, exclamation point. And I guess that some people, this had spread like wildfire. People were, oh my gosh, President Trump thinks we're out here celebrating him. We're not. We're out here fighting him. But it was a joke.
That's how ignorant they are. They don't get that. Oh, he thinks you're out there to talk about, or you're going to be persuaded to talk about the lowest unemployment rate among women in whatever 2 decades. Yeah. Okay. Just just dial it down for a second. Get those synapses firing again. So that was one message for one constituency. Yet another message for Democrats on the issue of immigration. He's had several, but this one took commercial form. Pretty strong.
That's illegal immigrant Luis Bracamontes, charged with murdering 2 police officers. It's pure evil. President Trump is right. Build the wall. Deport criminals. Stop illegal immigration now. Democrats who stand in our way will be complicit in every murder committed by illegal immigrants. President Trump will fix our border and keep our families safe.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Democrats complicit in murder. That's not mincing words.
No, I watched that video or the ad on YouTube, right?
And he had some surrogates out there making a similar case, and frankly, with strong language as well. Martha McSally being one of them. She's, of course, a pilot, served 20 years in the military, and is now running for the seat being vacated by Jeff Flake in the U.S. Senate.
Congresswoman from Tucson.
Right. And she was on with Tucker talking about what she has proposed, distinguished in the House, McCall and others, distinguished from what Lindsey Graham and some of the less stout of heart Republicans are proposing in terms of a deal on DACA, border security, chain migration, and the rest. Martha McSally with Tucker Carlson on the shutdown.
Well, how do you feel about the Democrats saying basically out loud, provide amnesty or we're going to stop paying our troops?
It's infuriating, Tucker. This is the point I brought up in the White House meeting last week, and I was moved when I heard Dick Durbin say there's lives hanging in the balance or something like that, and I was like moved to jump in and say the only lives that are hanging in the balance right now are those of our military, the men and women that are serving overseas, putting their lives in harm's way. There is a fake deadline created by the Democrats holding them hostage, and while our troops are over there risking their lives for us, these guys are dicking around, excuse my language, trying to come up with some issue that's not even in a top 20 priority of the American people.
I'm not going to tell Martha McSally she can't use that word. Okay, so there it is. Lindsey Graham and the great compromisers of the Republican caucus in the Senate winning the day here. It doesn't sound like it. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by David Drucker. He, of course, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and a CNN political analyst. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here.
So 16 days, the shutdown lasted 4 years ago. Are we looking at something that will extend right up until Trump's March 5th deadline for DACA designees?
Well, it's hard to tell. I tend to think that this thing is not going to last that long. I think the Democrats are trying to find a way out of this. I also think Republicans are hesitant to let it go on too long because, you never know how these things are going to play out, and they in the past have come out on the short end of them, although they appear to be in a better position now. So I think if Senate Democrats can figure out what they're okay with and if it's not too big of an ask, then I think the Senate will get a bill passed. But the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to get out of it, because it becomes less about whatever issues drove you into the shutdown and more about politics and saving face and trying to emerge with your negotiating leverage intact.
Why has Senator Flake and Senator Graham had a change of heart? Now they're with their Republican brothers and sisters.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is neither of them really want to be a part of extending a government shutdown. I think the other part is that Mitch McConnell, as he said on the Senate floor last night, gave assurances that he will move to consider DACA legislation, that is his intention, and that is the wording he used. It is my intention to move to consider DACA legislation once the government is open. It was vague, and we're not quite sure what that means, but I think what they wanted from the leader was a commitment that DACA would be given a hearing and it wouldn't simply be discarded. And that was, I think, good enough for them. And I think they also recognize that the longer the shutdown goes on, two things. One, you get closer to that March 5th deadline. I also think that the longer this goes on, it's possible that the president sort of retreats into a corner where he is not amenable really to any legislation that would address the Dreamer issue, regardless of his past statement saying that it's something that he wants to sign.
Yeah, and the Republican leadership, particularly on the Senate side, McConnell's in a bit of a trick bag, isn't he? Unless he wants to treat Democrats better than he treats his own caucus. So 4 years ago, there was a lot of criticism of Ted Cruz for trying to precipitate the shutdown over Obamacare, non-budgetary item, and so on and so forth. And that was criticism within the party. And so criticism of Ted Cruz, but compromise with Democrats for playing the same game, frankly, even on a less compelling matter. It's kind of a trick bag, isn't it?
Well, I think that the point here is that, 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, Republicans didn't have the leverage to do what Senator Cruz was trying to do.
Right.
And there was only one way it was going to end, badly. Republicans control the House, they hold the White House, and although it takes 60 votes in the Senate to pass spending bills, they control the Senate. And for McConnell to allow the minority party in the Senate to dictate terms to the Senate, the House, and the White House would infuriate his own voters and make him look very weak. And McConnell is a tactician. He's not weak. He makes decisions sometimes that infuriate his party because he sees it in the long-term interest of, rightly or wrongly, of maintaining his party's strength and ability to negotiate and get things done in the manner in which they want. And it wouldn't serve that purpose to simply do what the Democrats wanted. And I think that's why you're seeing him hold firm here.
And that's also why he is holding firm against the, again, quote unquote, nuclear option. Here we go again. The president made an overture on considering making this a simple majority proposition, and that was quickly rejected by McConnell.
Yeah, look, I don't understand. I understand sometimes voters' frustration with the rules of the Senate, and I can get that. The president's tweet yesterday, well, it's not going to make any Republican voter unhappy, most likely, was a little bit off message when he's generally been for the past 3 days or so on message when it comes to this, at least since that morning tweet a few days ago when he wondered about the chip element in the House-passed CR. All you're going to do if you eliminate the filibuster is diminish the power of the Senate, turn it into a glorified version of the House, and the next time Democrats have control of the Senate, you'll grease the way for single-payer health care and a broad-scale amnesty for all illegal immigrants. They will pass it because you won't be able to stop it in the minority. And I think Mitch McConnell understands that. And he also understands that political atmospherics can change even when many people don't think they can. I mean, in 2010, the map for Senate Republicans looked awful. There was a lot of talk early in the cycle about whether Democrats could get past 60 seats and really control the government even more. And Republicans ended up picking up 6 seats plus that seat in Massachusetts. because everything changed, and everything can change, and there's no reason Mitch McConnell wants to change the rules, change the Senate irreparably, and also put his party in a bind after the 2018 elections if things don't go well.
So how do you see this ending? I mean, they were supposed to take a vote at 1 o'clock last night. They're not doing that. They're going to reconvene at noon today. So what do you think anything's going to change from yesterday?
Well, it's possible. I think the fact that they moved the vote was a sign that they think they might be getting somewhere. And usually you hold these 1 a.m. votes, 2 a.m. votes, either because you have no choice or you're trying to squeeze the minority and the opposition and make it really difficult for them. So they came out relatively early, and they said, McConnell said what he said, and Schumer responded, and neither of them were overly partisan or overly aggressive, and neither of them really jabbed at each other. I mean, McConnell said a few words about it being a Democratic shutdown and a Democratic filibuster, all of which is true, but they were basically cordial, and so that tells me they were trying to create the space to get to a place where you can get enough Democrats on board to end the filibuster, and now you have 2 more votes in Graham and Flake on the Republican side. So I guess we'll have to see. It's hard to tell. Depending on who you talk to, you get either optimism or pessimism that anything will come of the noon Eastern time vote. But I thought it was at least you can characterize the move of the vote, the delay, as a positive development.
Story even more underreported than the March for Life, the Release the Memo story, and a good example of this, Congressman Jody Hice from Georgia tweeting over the weekend. Early this morning, I examined the classified 4-page memo from House Intel regarding the FBI, DOJ, and the so-called Russia collusion. To put it simply, wow. I joined the call to release the memo. Americans deserve truth and transparency. You've had members of Congress suggesting that this memo is so explosive they wouldn't be surprised if it leads to the end of Mueller's special counsel investigation into President Trump and his associates. Others saying that once the public sees this, we can hold people involved accountable in a number of ways. Some of these people should no longer be in government. With the number of members of Congress who've seen this memo, I'm surprised it isn't out yet, but do you expect it to be out, and do you have any sense of whether this is hyperbole from some Republicans or this really does have the TNT quotient that's being suggested?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out. I'm not sure. I mean, I've talked to a couple of members of Congress actually for the past year at times who have said that things went on that were improper in terms of unmasking, reasons for the unmasking, how the information was handled, what was done with it, who did the unmasking. But we still don't know yet exactly who did what and how, in which manner it was improper. So I'm open to the possibility that all of this is true. Part of me wonders if it'll be it's sort of the other side of the coin of the Russia collusion theory, which is there are all these events and things that may look smoky and weird and problematic, but it's never quite a smoking gun. It's like somebody had a meeting. Oh, he had a meeting with a person that he shouldn't have had a meeting with. And they talked about something that might involve something problematic. But it wasn't quite the right players, and we're not sure who really knew about it and what's really becoming of it. And so I'm wondering if that is how the memo is going to play out, or will it just say very clearly in plain English, this person in this position did this thing which is criminal, and boom, will it be that simple? I'll have to read it if we ever get a chance to know that. I do know, and I understand this, and I don't mean this critically at all, that many Republicans in the House are, allies of the president, and they're working hard to politically discredit the Russia investigation, which is perfectly an above-board sort of political thing to do. During the Monica Lewinsky investigation, there was a whole Democratic war room, and Democrats worked feverishly to discredit the special counsel at that time, Kenneth Starr, and his investigation. So these are things that happen. The question for us is trying to figure out what the real information is. And if they ever release the memo, then we'll find out.
All right. He is David Drucker, senior political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, WashingtonExaminer.com, also a CNN political analyst. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
I'm Lou Don.